YouTube channel. I have a video out there that I posted first on Instagram, then on TikTok. It's also shared on YouTube Shorts. It's kind of made its rounds in the social media world by now, and it is my top performing video, the most views I've ever received. I think it has like 70 something million views on Instagram. And it's a video of us showing the first meeting of our toddler to his new baby sister. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm gonna play it for you here, just so you can understand what this video is about.
Mommy, are you ready?
Yeah.
Hey, someone's here to see you.
Mommy, I got blue for you.
You got that for me?
Yeah.
Let's take our shoes off and come up on the bed.
Can you see her?
Yeah.
Can you see her? Look at her. Why is she sleeping?
Get cozy! Get cozy! Look, she was looking at pictures of you all day.
Look at all these pictures of Milo.
Look at her. Ready? Put your arms out. Oh, you got her.
Look at her. She burped at me.
She burped at you?
What's she doing?
Look at her. Give her a kissy on the cheek.
Family hug.
Family hug.
Oh. Oh, burp. I love you. I love my new sister. You're tickling me. Stop tickling me, baby Coco. You got it. You got it. Ow. Ow.
You loved her.
She dressed on me for a little while. I love her. My reading.
I realized that one of the main reasons that video went viral is not just because it is so freaking adorable how they look at each other at the end, but because a lot of people who are expecting a second don't know how they should properly introduce the baby to the toddler in order to set them up for a positive relationship in every way. Reducing feelings of jealousy, making the toddler feel still included. Some might say there's no right or wrong way to do this. I think there are probably better ways to do it than others, but I do agree, there's not one set way to do this. And I'm just calling out, I'm probably titling this video on YouTube something like how to introduce a baby to a toddler. I'm gonna make it kind of an objective statement like that, but I'm really only doing that because I assume people who are searching for these search terms on YouTube are searching something like how to introduce a toddler to a baby. But keep in mind, this is just how we did it, and it's just the method that worked really well for us. At this point, I've posted that same video on my Instagram and TikTok like maybe 5 times, changing the text overlays on top, because every time I post it, it continues to reach new audiences, and I've sort of tweaked the text to make it more educational rather than just entertaining. But I do feel like this type of video is actually really well suited for a YouTube video, a sit down, talk to camera. So we're gonna blow it out, I'm gonna explain everything, and if you have a second baby on the way, I hope you find this useful. Starting with when I was just pregnant, before the baby even came, one thing that we did with our son, who's the toddler, is we started telling him, Mommy has a baby in her tummy, and the baby is your baby. My son's name is Milo, so we called it Milo's baby. We said Milo's baby is in Mommy's tummy, and as soon as this baby comes out, she's yours. You have a responsibility to care for her. We tried not to frame it like it's Mommy's baby or it's Daddy's baby, or even like it's our baby. We called it your baby. And I think that just immediately loops a toddler in, gets them excited, they have a responsibility coming up, and they can sort of feel excited about something that's coming that's directly tied to them. We definitely talked about the baby a lot when I was pregnant, and one thing I remember my husband and I doing is we would talk to each other about what a good brother Milo was gonna be, and we would talk about him in front of him when he was in earshot, but we would pretend that we didn't really know he was listening. So we'd be standing in the kitchen, Milo would be doing something on his own quietly, and I would look at my husband, Michael, and I would be like, oh, Daddy, do you know what I just thought of? And he would look at me and say, what? And I would say, Milo is going to be the best big brother when this baby comes. I just know he's so ready to care for her. He's gonna be so nice to her. He's just gonna be such a good big brother. And my husband would look at me and say, oh, Mommy, I was thinking the same thing. He's incredible. He was made for this. And as we talked to each other about him in front of him, we would sort of be able to see him in our peripheral vision. We would see that his ears were perked up and that he was looking at us. and he was internalizing what we were saying about him, but we never actually said it to him. And then he would just kind of think about it a little bit and go back to whatever he was doing. That's a method that I actually highly recommend with toddlers when you're trying to instill any sort of confidence in them. Talking about them positively in front of them makes them feel like, I don't know, you're just like talking them up in a way that they hear it and they're actually focused on it, because you're not sitting them down and trying to get them to focus, but they're just listening because they're interested. Sometimes during the pregnancy, I would sit Milo down and I would be like, can I tell you something? And I would try to make eye contact with him, and I would be like, you are going to be the best big brother. I'm so excited for you to get a baby sister. And something about me talking directly to him, he just wasn't that interested. Like, he would look at me sometimes like he has never met me in his life and be like, okay, I'm done. I want to go play. I want to get out of this talking situation. But when I was talking about him, he was interested all of a sudden. As it got closer to the baby's arrival, we told him that his baby sister was going to get him a present when she was born, and that he was going to get the present the day she was born. And we asked him what he wanted. We got him really excited about this toy that baby sister was picking out for him. And we also brought him to the toy store and let him go pick out a little plush stuffed animal for her. And he went through all the animals and selected this octopus and was like so excited to give her the octopus. And so the gift giving element was exciting because he knew that when he came to the hospital, that was the day he was gonna get to play with the squishy toy thing that she got for him. Now let's fast forward to the hospital. So I watched a ton of videos about how to bring the toddler into the room when the new baby is already there. And so many people do this one differently. Like, I've seen people bring the toddler in while the mom's holding the baby. I've seen people bring the toddler in while the baby is like across the room, nowhere near the parents. I've seen parents coming home with the baby to the toddler who's already at home in their safe space. So I just really want to reiterate, there's not one perfect way to do this. I think you really have to know your kid. You really have to know what type of environment they thrive in and make the decision that's best for you and your family. So this is what worked for us. I also do think it's worth mentioning that our toddler was 2 years and 10 months old when the baby was born. And so that definitely informs a lot of these tips that I'm giving you, because a lot of these tips are just not applicable if your older child is still way, way younger than 2. We knew that we wanted to introduce our toddler to the baby in the hospital, and we also knew that we just didn't want to bring all of our families into the room at once and have him meet the baby when there's like a lot of action going on. My husband and I feel like when we are with both of our families, especially with our toddler, he gets so hyped up around grandparents. He's so excited to be with them that the energy level is just boosted up like times 100. And we wanted to bring everything down, make everything calm and as normal as possible, where it was just our core 4 family together in the room. So our toddler was staying with my parents while I gave birth in the hospital, and we had the baby very early in the morning. So we waited until a little bit later in that afternoon. I think it was like about 3 p.m. when he came. And we had my parents meet my husband down in the lobby of the hospital and pass our toddler off to my husband so that my husband could bring him up alone. Some people asked me, like, how did you navigate having these conversations with your family, telling them that you want the toddler to come up and meet the baby first and keeping them out of the room? I'm extremely fortunate. We have a family that is just very respectful of boundaries. So they just asked us, how do you want to do this? Whatever you want to do, you know, whatever type of pass off situation you want to do, we are fine with. Just let us know what you guys decide. And we just told them, this is the plan. You're dropping him off with my husband. He's going to take him upstairs. We'll have like 10 minutes with our family alone. And as soon as we're ready, you guys can come up and join us. And then, of course, take the toddler again. And everyone was really respectful. If you have a family that is crossing boundaries and not listening to you, you might need to be a little bit firmer on this. But we felt it was so important that our toddler came into the room without all that action around him. Our personal preference was for my husband to bring our toddler into the room and to have me sitting in the hospital bed with the baby in the bassinet next to me, not in my arms. I really wanted to have my arms free so that as soon as he came into the room, I looked normal. Like, I didn't look like I was all of a sudden his mom holding another bundle. and I could then use my arms to scoop him up and give him a hug and focus not just my mental attention on him, but my physical attention and my hands and my body, and like cuddle with him too. So when he came into the room, I immediately was sitting there, the baby was next to me, and I didn't even say anything about the baby at first. I just said, hi. He told me he brought a balloon for me. I picked him up on the bed. He was so excited to see the baby, so he was the one being like, can I see her? Can I see her? And we let him look at her right away, but I did make sure to not act like I was so excited about the baby at that point, but I was more excited to have him there. One question that I got a few times about this video, which I would like to address here, is how did you film this? Like, some people I think thought I had a film crew in the hospital because there's like a couple angles and it cuts back and forth. You guys, it was very simple. I took one cell phone and I leaned it against a windowsill, and I took my husband's cell phone and I leaned it against a water glass on the other windowsill, and I just turned them both on and then climbed into the bed, and they were both just rolling and making a long video. And then once I got home from the hospital, I was able to send both videos to my computer and sync them up to the same time and just edit them so that it looks like it's cutting back and forth. But no, there was not a film crew. It was just like iPhones on the window. The next thing that we did was a tip from my mother-in-law, and I never would have thought of this myself, but I thought it was such a good idea. We printed photos of my toddler out before the birth, and I brought them with me to the hospital, and then I arranged them in the baby's bassinet all around her. So when he came in, not only did he see that we were sitting next to the new baby, but he saw photos of himself scattered all around her bassinet. And we were able to tell him that she had been looking at pictures of him all day and that she was so excited to meet him. And it was just a great way to make him feel included in all of the excitement around what was happening in the bassinet. And we left those pictures there the whole time. So even when the doctors and nurses came in, or once our families came up, he got to see that people were commenting on, oh, who's this photo? You have a brother, you're so lucky. He just got to be included in all of that hype. He happened to be very excited to hold the baby and get her seated on him. But I will say, one of the things I was working really hard to do is to not push him to hold her. And so I really waited for his cues until he was cozy next to me and he said, can I hold her? Can you put her in my arms? And we made sure to do that intentionally and to like do that transfer very slowly and intentionally when he was ready and when he asked for it. And once he was ready and requested that, my husband picked her up and placed her into his arms. And once again, that handoff was very intentional. We weren't like shoving the baby onto him and saying, here you go, hold her. It was like we all were together. I was guiding his hands. He got to hold her. We really put her on his lap. I even let him kiss her on the cheek. I know maybe that's controversial. A lot of people are stressed about people being near the baby, but I knew this time around with a new baby, having a toddler at home, she's gonna be kissed a little bit more than I would have let my first child be kissed. A couple of safety tips that are not really shown in the video, but I think are important. Number one, my husband and my son washed their hands right outside of the room before they came in. It was one of those hospital rooms where like there's a vestibule, so you walk through 2 doors and there's a hand washing station before you get in. And secondly, we intentionally had our toddler take his shoes off before he climbed up onto the bed where we had been with the baby. I've seen a lot of videos where the toddler climbs up onto the hospital bed in their outdoor shoes and just kind of steps all over the blankets. And so those were 2 important things to us: hand washing and no shoes. I just feel like the whole experience of having a second baby, I have been less anxious about a lot of things, but particularly people holding her, someone kissing her on the cheek. I know certain situations are just not safe for a newborn baby, and of course, if anyone was sick or felt any sickness symptoms, I would keep them far away. But especially with our toddler, I wanted to really relinquish control of the baby around him, and I wanted to let him hold her. Like, I feel a lot more comfortable the second time around knowing that a baby is not going to break if they are being held in like a less than ideal way for 10 seconds. And so from the start, when I would take our baby and put her onto our toddler's lap, I would, make sure her head was as supported as possible, make sure it was leaning against him in some way. And sometimes I would sneakily have my hand there guiding her head or holding it subtly. But I would put her there and let go and really give him the feeling that he's holding her and really let her weight go onto him. Maybe some people think that's a bad idea. I felt completely comfortable letting go of her and letting him hold her. Usually he just wants her for like 10 seconds, and then sometimes he literally says, okay, I'm done with this. or take it off, and then that's fine. But I really wanted to put her in his lap and let him have the feeling of holding her in his arms. The next thing that we did after this moment, which was my husband's idea, as you can see in the video, is we did a family hug. And I think that just sort of solidifies the fact that we are a unit, we are a new family, this is your family. We really did drill into his head that this was our family. To the point where the moment we got home from the hospital, whenever we would be talking about doing something as a family, when it was just the three of us, he would say to us, "No, Coco's not here." And that was just so sweet. He knew she's part of the family and wanted to include her, and I think that family hug moment was so sweet. Plus, apparently it made a lot of people cry, and when I watch it back, I definitely get teary too. Some other things that we've done to try to reduce feelings of sibling jealousy. We, from the start, have tried to avoid using the baby or blaming the baby as a reason for why we can't do something that he's asking us to do. Of course, coming home with a baby means that there are a lot of times that our hands are full, and he might be asking us, "I want a snack," or "Can you turn the TV on?" or "Can you get me this special toy?" And we are feeding the baby, or we're alone and the baby's spitting up and we have nowhere to put her. And there's a lot of times that we just cannot attend to him, and we need to teach him how to get things himself and how to do things himself. And it would be really easy a lot of the time for us to just say, "I can't, I have to feed Coco," or "I'm sorry, the baby needs me," or "The baby's crying and you can get that yourself." Basically, we've just come up with roundabout ways to say that without actually using the baby's name or the word baby in the sentence. So for example, if I was feeding the baby and my toddler wanted me to get him something for a snack out of the cabinet, I would say something like, "I'll be able to help you in 2 minutes," or "My hands are full right this moment, but I'll be able to help you soon. Maybe you can go into the drawer and pull out a little snack cup while we wait." Another thing we tried to do from the start was to let his interest in the baby kind of guide how much we're talking about her and how much outward attention we're putting on her. So if he was in a space and he was talking to me about something else, even if I was actively changing the baby's diaper or burping the baby or something, I would actually just talk to him normally as if I wasn't doing that action with the baby. And I wouldn't really talk about the baby or reference doing anything with the baby unless he asked. Similarly, if he wanted to hold the baby, which he does occasionally want to do, he will ask to sit down and he'll say, "Can I hold her?" And I'll put her on his lap. But I tried my hardest to not be constantly pushing to him to say, "Do you want to hold her? Do you want to help me with this? Do you want to change the diaper? Do you want to get me this? Do you want to get me that?" I knew that he was interested in her, but I sort of gave him the space to be the one to request to do that instead of always turning the conversation to be something about Coco. There's a really great parenting book called Toddlers on Call. It's like the Moms on Call toddler version. It did have a little chapter in it about introducing a baby, and there's one thing in there that stuck with me that we definitely implemented, which was drilling into his head that it is the entire family's job to work together to all take care of our weakest member. And I know that statement kind of can make someone laugh, like it sounds kind of silly to be like, "She's the weakest link, goodbye." But if you think about it, she is, at the moment, physically the weakest member who needs the most care and attention, and we really tried to make it something like we are all working together as a family to care for her, which means it's not just mommy and daddy's responsibility, but it's your responsibility too. So we often ask him, "Can you grab that? Can you help with this?" And just a little tip, one thing that really works well with us, instead of asking him sometimes, "Can you do this? Can you get that?" we just reframe some of those questions to be statements, and we'll say, for example, if I need a burp cloth because she spit up, instead of saying, "Milo, can you go get a burp cloth and give it to me?" I would say something like, "Milo, the burp cloths are over there. One of them goes on the table in front of me, please." Something about hearing it as a statement versus a request. It's like he feels less like he's being told to do something, and he all of a sudden feels engaged and excited to be part of it. One last thing I can think of that was so important to me was I really didn't want Milo to start to associate the baby with being just my responsibility and something that just mommy cares for and daddy is totally free to be with him. It was so important to me that he saw both of us taking care of her, and that he realized that we were both a team with her and that he needed to share both of us with her. So my husband got 8 weeks of paternity leave, and he was able to split it up. So he did 4 weeks up front, then he went back to work for a month, and then he took his next 4 weeks. So thankfully he was actually around and had the ability to help. But even now that he's fully back to work, Michael and I have worked out a system where every single day we alternate who's doing Coco's wake up and nighttime and who's doing Milo's wake up and nighttime. So for example, one day it will be my day to be with Coco. So I will get her up in the morning, I'll do her morning feed, and then that same night I will do her bath and put her to bed while Michael is doing all that same stuff with Milo. And that way, while he's doing bedtime with Milo and Milo says, who's gonna get me in the morning, it's always the other parent that's coming for him the next day, and the next day that other parent gets to do bedtime and bath time with him. And we really do go back and forth and switch every single day so that both of them are getting used to being cared for by both of us. I think that's a great way to avoid, if you can, having one default parent who needs to be there, who the kid is inconsolable when they go away or are not available. Now, all of this to say, we did all of these things and we implemented everything as best we could, but of course, not everything was perfect. Our son definitely struggled, I would say, for the first 4 weeks when his baby sister came home. He was just totally thrown out of whack and like all of a sudden didn't want to go to school, had separation issues from both me and my husband, didn't even want to leave the house even when we were the ones to take him. He always was like, I want to go back home. He was just being very abnormal and not like himself. And I will say, we tried everything. We read books, we tried sticker charts, we tried letting him go to school with his little stuffed animal. Some things made it a little bit better and seemed to be working in the moment, but honestly, it was time that was the healer of all, and it took us a good 1 month before he was all of a sudden acting like his normal self again. All that to say, in that whole time period when he was being a little bit not like himself, he never once did anything that was like lashing out towards the baby. He never expressed any outward feelings of hatred towards her or wanting to send her back, and he thankfully never did anything physical in effort to hurt her. What I will say is that I'm sure in his head he was still experiencing some typical symptoms of toddler jealousy, especially just feelings like, are my parents mine anymore? I hope they love me just as much. I'm sure he was disrupted and uprooted and felt extremely uneasy, and I'm sure the things we did not fully mitigate symptoms of toddler jealousy. But I do think the transition was pretty much as smooth as it could be for that age gap, and I'm extremely proud of the way we did it, and I hope that these tips help you. I think when it comes to this stuff, there are only so many things that you can do to try to set them up on a good track for a positive, healthy relationship in the future. But listen, I do not think that if a baby came into your family and the toddler was extremely jealous and lashed out and started hitting the baby, I don't think that's like you're doomed and it's a sign that they're going to be enemies for the rest of their lives as siblings. I'm confident that even though we did this part pretty well and they had a pretty positive introduction to one another, I'm pretty sure they're going to be normal siblings in the future, and I'm sure there will be pushing and hitting and biting and all of those things. If you're interested in hearing more about our overall transition from having 1 to 2 kids, I have a whole episode of my podcast about that. It's called The Real Stuff Podcast, and it is here on this YouTube channel at Lucie B. Fink. Just go to the Real Stuffs playlist. I'll also try to pop it up for you here, but just go to the podcast and find the episode about the transition from 1 to 2. I do think that implementing some of these tips is a good way to make at least those first few weeks or months with a baby a little bit more seamless. But at the end of the day, I don't think that your whole experience of bringing a baby in your house should be about navigating the toddler's feelings and trying to soften the blow for them at every turn. And I think part of that is because it's probably good for a toddler to have that life disruption and that realization that they are not the center of the world and that they are not the only one who matters. We had our son for almost 3 whole years before he had a baby introduced, and that's a long, long time for you to feel like you are the king or queen of the world. And that's just not the way the world actually works. So whether or not you're giving your child another sibling, I think some things are actually good for them to have to work through and learn and figure out, even if it's tough and even if they regress and have tantrums and cry. I think ultimately it is a positive thing for their development as human beings who will one day become adults in the world. I hope that you liked this video and found it useful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up on the video to let me know, and drop any comments down below about your introduction between your 2 kids or your upcoming introduction and how you're feeling about it. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have more vlogs coming out, more amazing podcast episodes, and I will do some more sit-down style videos like this as well. See you soon. Bye.